everyone, hey friends, this is Bryan Rodriguez from Silicon Valley Pride, and we're cooking with pride. This is the holiday edition, and I'm going to make scones for us. And you know, this is a pre-recorded, streamed version, but I'm hoping that in the spring we can get together and cook in person. Maybe we can have a grill out and have a barbecue outside somewhere. We'll have to figure out what we can do. Anyways, right now I'm gonna make scones. They're gonna be raisin cranberry scones, easy, quick, and yummy, and perfect for a holiday morning or a winter morning. Let's get started. So basically what I have here are my ingredients ready to go. This should be a quick recipe and a quick video to watch. So in here there's about 2 cups of flour, about 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, half a cup of sugar, maybe half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm gonna mix all of that together here, you know, just mix it all up. And next what I'm gonna do is I'm going to prep my wet ingredients. It's gonna be half a cup of heavy cream, and I'm gonna mix that with an egg and about a teaspoon or so of vanilla. The nice thing about making these scones is you can add your own spices or toppings or whatnot. Here you'll see I have some shredded butter, and it's frozen butter that I keep in the freezer, and I shredded it with like a cheese grater. You could also just cube it up really small, cut it up with a knife really small into cubes. And then some people use a fork. I use a pastry cutter because I happen to have a pastry cutter. You could use your hands, but I think you run the risk of melting the butter when you handle it with your hands, so it's better to use like a pastry cutter or a fork. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna whip up really quickly my cream and my egg and my vanilla so that it's ready to pour into the butter and flour mixture. And then I'm gonna stir in the raisins and cranberries and form it into a ball or a wedge, and then I'm going to flatten that out and divide it up. So first things first, I got my wet ingredients here blended and ready to pour into the butter and flour mixture. And here's the butter that I'm putting into the flour mixture. I'm actually going to grab the pastry cutter and use that to scrape it out. That should grab all the butter out. And then now I'm just going to start working the butter into the flour. See how it's kind of separate right now? Hopefully that should be mixed in there and make the butter, the flour look a little less floury. I don't know the right texture is. Basically you're not going to see chunks of butter anymore. So I have put the shredded butter in there, and right now if you look at the butter, it's a little, you can see like big chunks of butter. See, there's a big chunk of butter. What we need to do is we need to work the butter into the flour so that there's no more frozen chunks of butter like that left, that it's all incorporated into the flour mixture. So this might take me a few minutes, not a very long time, but again, I like using the pastry cutter because then I'm not putting my hands on the butter and melting the butter. Part of having a successful flaky scone is that the butter, what I've heard on cooking shows is the butter, when it's still kind of frozen and mixed in with the flour, I think it creates steam and interacts with the baking powder and stuff like that and makes everything rise. I don't know if I'm explaining the chemistry well. I just know that if you overwork the butter with your hands, sometimes it gets heavy. And same thing with a pie crust. Like if you're making a homemade pie crust, you have to work in frozen butter into the flour and salt mixture, and then slowly add water to it until it gathers. Similar to what we're doing here. And one thing I was reading about the recipe that I'm using, I think it's called Sally's addictive baking or something like that. One thing that I was reading is that you have to use heavy whipping cream when you're making the scones, because if you don't use heavy whipping cream, it gets watery and the texture doesn't come out right. So you need something, I think, full of fat and thick. That's why she recommends heavy whipping cream or butter. And so I'm gonna, okay, so see how the butter kind of gathered up a little bit here. See, there's still some chunks of butter that I need to work in there, but there's fewer. That just gathered up in my pastry cutter. I'm just gonna pound that really quick. I think stir and cut the flour in there. It's getting close. This is really getting close. The butter, if you look, you can see the butter is kind of turning into like little itty bitty cubes. See how there are little itty bitty cubes? So we're getting close to having it well incorporated. And you know what? When you're baking, you're gonna get flour all over the kitchen, so don't expect a clean kitchen. Be prepared to clean your kitchen afterwards. Why am I making scones? They're actually pretty easy. It probably only takes about 20, 30 minutes to whip the scones together. Then you have to let them rest in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes. Then you bake them for about 20 minutes, give or take. And they taste good. They're easy to make. They're really satisfying with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in the morning. And they're fun. And you know, you go to like Starbucks and you can spend $4 on a scone, and my goodness, if butter and flour and salt and raisins or any other dried fruit or something you always have on hand, you can make, gosh, you can make a dozen scones for maybe $10, you know, or less, because these things are just staples. It's a pretty economical treat if that's what you want to do. I think this is, see how it's even a little yellow? I think there's not too many big chunks of butter in there, so I think it's ready to mix in the wet ingredients here that I whisked up, which is the egg, the vanilla, the heavy whipping cream, and my dried fruit, which I'm using cranberries and raisins. Raisins weren't something that I liked a lot when I was a kid, but as an adult, I'm kind of learning to appreciate them more. If you don't like raisins, you could use cranberries, or you could use dried blueberries. I'm sure you could use dried cherries, any kind of dried fruit that you want to use, you could use. I think if you're going to use something like apricots, I don't know, I've never had an apricot scone, but I'm sure you could probably use that too. You probably just need to chop up the apricots really small. The thing with the cranberries and blueberries and raisins is they're already small, so less work to do. And this is coming together. If it doesn't come together well enough, like this is, if it's getting hard to incorporate the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients, you could add a little more cream just to help it grab together. But basically, once it looks wet enough, you're going to put it on the counter, the dusted counter here, and kind of form really quickly into a ball. I think what I will do is add just a little bit of cream right here. And hopefully that will make this grab more easily. And before I handle it too much with my hands, I'm going to flour my hands to hopefully keep the dough from sticking to me too much. And this should hopefully keep the dough from sticking to the counter too much as well. So I'm going to invert this. And see how it's all kind of loose right now? I think I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of cream, just a tiny bit. And gather this into a ball. Okay, so I'm forming this into a ball. You can see it's still a little bit loose, not okay with that, so I'm going to try and gather that up with a little bit more cream. I'm getting close. I'm getting close. Try not to overwork the dough. I think this is good enough. I think this is good enough. Again, almost there. I have a little pastry cutter. I'm going to try and gather up all the little bits of dough. And I'm going to dust my hands with a little bit of flour, hopefully keep it from sticking to me too much. I think this is pretty well gathered. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a piece of plastic wrap. And I'll flatten it out, and I'm going to refrigerate it. I kind of funked up the roll of plastic wrap when I was unwrapping it, unlocking it. It was all locked up. So, it's kind of a mess. Whatever. This is a home cooking show. I'm not the Barefoot Contessa. Fun to watch. I'm not that put together. So, I don't know. I think it's kind of like we're home cooks. We're having fun, we're experimenting with recipes and things, so it's kind of nice to see what happens in a real kitchen when things kind of get a little messy and you don't have a team of elves to clean up behind you or do the dishes or get the kitchen pristine before your cooking show starts, or even if you're just cooking with friends. This is also, I think, a fun thing to do for friends or family if in the morning, if you're able to get up before everyone and have an hour to kind of throw this stuff together and get it baked. Because really, I think you can do the whole thing in about an hour if you have all the ingredients and you don't have to run out to pick anything up. Flour, whipping cream, eggs, dried fruits, salt, vanilla. I think if you have most of these things ready to go, quick. Now I'm going to put this in my fridge. They're going to rest for like 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'm going to bake them. So yeah, now I can do a little bit of cleaning. Hello, so welcome back. Now we're going to cut the scones and place them on a baking sheet. I made the scones about 6, 7 inches wide, and so I'm going to cut them into quarters first. Is that about half? Yeah, that's about half. And then I'll cut the quarters into half. And then I'm going to try and cut them into thirds. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. So about a third. Yeah. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Cool. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they're not perfectly sized. 1, 2, there should be about 12 little scones right now. So I'm going to take a few, I'm going to place them on a baking sheet with parchment paper. I'm going to kind of like place them top to bottom. Remember, I let the dough set or sit in the refrigerator for about 15-20 minutes to let the dough get nice and cold again after we worked it so much. And then after I'm done placing them here on the baking sheet with parchment paper, I'm going to brush them with heavy cream. You could also brush them with egg, like an egg wash if you wanted. I'm going to brush them with heavy cream because I have some heavy cream left over. And I don't necessarily use heavy cream a lot, so why not put it on my scones. This is a little silicone brush, and it's kind of good for brushing things like this. I mean, you could use it if you're going to put barbecue sauce on something that you're done barbecuing. These little silicone brushes are good for that too. They're better than the fiber brushes because they clean more easily and they don't rot. So this is worth the investment if you like to use it occasionally. And you don't have to get a big one. See, this isn't very big. It's kind of small. And I'm giving it a generous raw washing. And then after I wash it with the heavy cream, I am going to sprinkle some sugar on it before I bake it. What are you guys going to do for the holidays? I should be in town for Christmas. I'm not sure if I'm going to be visiting family or friends or whatnot, but we are going to go to a nice warm beach and get the heck out of Dodge before Christmas because we need a break. I think we all need a break. So if you can, figure out how you're going to escape and plan an escape because, man, it has been hard now 2 years almost. We're going on 2 years. March of next year will be 2 years since we locked down. Fortunately, we're all boosted and vaccinated. Hopefully all of us are fully vaccinated and gotten our booster if it's been more than 6 months.
So Bryan, what are you adding there?
This is sugar. I'm dusting a little bit of sugar. If I was going to be extra, I would have gotten some coarse sugar, almost like it's sugar that's so coarse you could see the crystals. This is more of your average granulated sugar, but it adds a little bit of crunch on top when you're baking, and it adds a little bit of sweetness on top when you're baking. And so voila, these are ready to be baked. Sugared and brushed with heavy cream. I'm going to put them in the oven for about 20 minutes at 400 degrees. Set a timer for 20 minutes. Okay, cool. And this is the finished product. I did a batch of scones ahead of time, and they look pretty gosh darn good. Let me taste one. It's a little crunchy on the bottom. It's crunchy, it's light, it's not heavy. And what does it need? I think it could use, oops. I think it could use a cup of tea. So I like to make a strong cup of tea, Assam loose leaf tea, English breakfast tea, and my tea is very strong. Like it's almost black. It's almost coffee black. And I like my tea milky, so I'm gonna get some whole milk to put in my tea. And man, that's satisfying. I love these scones. I hope you'll make them. I hope you have happy and safe holidays. I hope you'll be vaccinated. And make some scones Christmas morning, the day after Christmas if you're hungover. What you could do is you can make these, freeze them before you bake them, and then pop them into the oven when you're ready to bake in the morning. So you can make these ahead and freeze them the night before if you want. Bye.